Hello, good evening, and welcome to the campus of Cedarville University. We are in the Centennial Library in the campus newsroom. My name is Sarah Gump. I'll be your host this evening, and this is Shelley Daub. Shelley, we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
So this is the College Credit Plus FAQs for Ohio Home Educators live stream. So we are so glad you're here. We assume that most of you are probably home educators or homeschool families, and we know that you are expecting Melanie Elsey from Christian Home Educators of Ohio, but we apologize. We are having some internet connection issues, so we're unable to have her join us on the live stream this evening. But never fear, we still have Shelley Daub, who is a dual enrollment advisor and expert here on the campus of Cedarville University. So we will still be discussing College Credit Plus and dual enrollment and the wonderful wealth of a resource this is for home education families. Shelley, do you have anything to say?
Absolutely. So not only am I a dual enrollment advisor here at Cedarville, I'm also a homeschool mom. This is year 26 for me. I have had 5 of my sons graduate from homeschooling, and they've all participated in dual enrollment. So I can speak to this topic from your side of the fence, being a parent myself, and from the admissions and academic advising perspective as well.
That's wonderful. So if you've never heard of Cedarville University, we are an accredited Christ-centered Baptist institution with enrollment of 4,715 undergraduate, graduate, and online students in more than 150 areas of study. We were founded in 1887. Cedarville is one of the largest private Christian universities in Ohio. And so we are so excited to be here tonight talking about dual enrollment and College Credit Plus, because we also offer College Credit Plus classes here at Cedarville. So, Shelley, you have a dual role as academic advisor and home educator. Can you tell us about your experience a little bit?
Sure. So my sons have attended, between the 5 of them, about 10 different institutions as dual enrolled students. So we've taken online classes, they've taken in-person classes, they've commuted to campus. We've kind of tried it all. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of College Credit Plus, is that your student can attend as many colleges as they want to and try out different things and find out what works for them.
Very good. So we're going to begin tonight by talking about the College Credit Plus program. Can you tell us about your experience with College Credit Plus?
Sure. Well, first I want to tell you what College Credit Plus is. So College Credit Plus is Ohio's dual enrollment program. Pretty much every state in the U.S. has some form of a dual credit program that allows students to take college classes while they're still in high school, and they earn both college and high school credit for those courses. The state of Ohio is unique in some ways in that it allows students to take courses for free. So tonight we want to talk about how you know if your student is eligible to take College Credit Plus courses and how to apply for funding so that you can take free classes.
In addition to that, you are welcome, and we invite you to type into the chat, whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook, any questions you may have in relation to College Credit Plus or dual enrollment. Shelley will be happy to answer them this evening, or we will try our best.
Thank you. So kind of an overview of the College Credit Plus program is that families, first of all, want to know, how do I participate? Students can participate in College Credit Plus, first of all, by determining if they're eligible. So the state of Ohio is actually in the process of determining what the eligibility requirements are going to be for 2022 and 23 for that school year. Typically, students are required to provide test scores, and as many of you know, in the past 2 years, those test score requirements have been waived for College Credit Plus eligibility. So the state of Ohio is actually reviewing a new rule to determine what the eligibility requirements will be for this next academic year, and we should know that by mid-February. So determining eligibility isn't just about test scores. Students have to actually be an Ohio resident. They have to be enrolled in an Ohio public, private, or homeschool. And they also have to attend a, I'm so sorry, attend a private, public, or homeschool. I think I just said that.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
So there's College Credit Plus, but there's also broadly dual enrollment. So even if we have families or students watching that are from outside of the state of Ohio, they still could qualify for dual enrollment experience.
Absolutely. At Cedarville, about 50% of our students use College Credit Plus funding, and about 50% are either out-of-state students who family pay for their courses, or they're Ohio students who maybe didn't apply for College Credit Plus funding in time or didn't get as much funding as they want, so they self-pay for classes. Cedarville offers a great tuition discount for students to do that. It's $185 per credit hour, and it's really a great way to get started or to maybe take a class that you don't have funding for.
So you said the legislature in the state of Ohio was determining funding for the College Credit Plus program. So we don't have that specific information yet, but can you talk about how that translates to individual students?
Sure. So what we actually don't have yet is the eligibility requirement. The funding is there. So first of all, funding depends upon what type of student you are. So if you are a public schooled student, you are funded through your public school. If you are a private or homeschooled student, then you are funded through a budgetary allowance that the state of Ohio has already set aside for those students. Homeschool and private school students have to apply for funding, and every student in Ohio is eligible to request up to 30 credit hours per year of funding and a total of 120 credit hours throughout their high school years.
Wow.
So that's a lot of credits that you can get for free.
Wow.
In terms of how that translates for individual students, what we found last year is that seniors got around 20 credit hours, and 7th and 8th graders got typically 4 to 8 credit hours. Obviously, the bulk of the credits go to the upperclassmen. So seniors get more than juniors, and juniors get more than sophomores.
Wow. As young as 7th grade, that is absolutely fascinating, and that is a wonderful resource.
It is. And as young as 7th grade is absolutely true. I would say statistically we have very few 7th graders who participate. In the 2019 annual report for College Credit Plus, we know that about 77,000 students participated that year. Only about 110 of those were 7th graders across the state.
Wow. I just wanted to take a break to say that I've been looking in the chat in the comment section, and I noticed we have a wide variety of families from Ohio, but even a couple from out of state, including Illinois. So we're so glad you're joining with us this evening. Once again, if you have specific questions, you're welcome to just comment in the chat, and Shelley and I will try our best. But can you further explain what funding covers? What type of expenses does the College Credit Plus funding cover?
That's a great question. So for a public school student, College Credit Plus funding covers books, tuition, and fees. For a private schooled student, it also covers book, tuition, and fees. For a homeschooled student, it covers tuition and fees, but the books are the responsibility of the homeschool parent. The reason for that is that the way the state law is written, it says the high school will pay for the books and materials. So since as home educators, we are the high school, that becomes our responsibility.
Thank you for that clarification. We do have one question from Jessica. She says, I'm curious what courses and approach would be recommended for a student in junior high school. So do you have any Cedarville courses that you would recommend for a junior in high school?
Yeah, it's a great question because a big part of the College Credit Plus experience is kind of getting your feet wet and learning what college is like. So you want to take a course that is going to be challenging, but that is also going to allow your student to learn all of those soft skills that you need to be a college student. They have to learn to manage their email, communicate with professors, all sorts of things that aren't academic. Many of our young students at Cedarville take our personal finance or psychology course, or maybe even a history course, a U.S. history course as a first class, just so that they can kind of find their way through that first semester of being a college student.
That's wonderful. Next question would be, would CCP funding cover any course at college?
So that is also a great question. The way state law is written, it says that the first 15 credit hours that you use CCP funding for has to be a level 1 course. So that is typically going to be a general education or a career broadening course. And students, again, have to take their first 15 credit hours in those courses. English, history, speech, that sort of thing. After those first 15 hours, the students can then take level 2 courses. So say they took Spanish 1 as a level 1 course, then they would be eligible to take Spanish 2. There are some courses that are not CCP eligible. There's kind of a long list of them, but some examples would be study abroad courses, non-sectarian courses, so Bible courses here at Cedarville are not covered, although we do discount them. Other things like PE classes, that sort of thing, private lessons that have high fees. So there are some restrictions. It's really important once your student is accepted to a college and has their CCP funding that they meet with an academic advisor who can walk them through that and walk them through course choices.
So CCP is the acronym we're using for College Credit Plus. So we accept College Credit Plus funding here at Cedarville, but there's a wide variety of schools in the state of Ohio that accept College Credit Plus funding. So we do have a question that is asking, are all CCP courses online? So can you answer that for Cedarville versus outside of Cedarville?
I can, and first I want to back up and talk a little bit about which colleges offer College Credit Plus or participate in College Credit Plus. So within the state of Ohio, every public university and community college is required to participate. Private colleges have the option to participate, and there are only a couple of Christian colleges that actually participate. So Cedarville really offers that opportunity through online classes for any student in Ohio to take a biblically based class. Your other question was about online versus on campus.
Yep.
So not every college offers online courses. So you'll want to check out the colleges, see what they offer. They are required by law to post on their website all of their level 1 courses, so you can get a feel for what that would look like at each college.
So what about here at Cedarville? Are they online or are they on campus?
Yes, at Cedarville, we offer both. And so I would say over 90% of our students take their courses online. Our online courses are asynchronous, which means students can study anytime, anywhere, as long as they turn their assignments in on time. We also offer on-campus courses, so local students can commute to campus. And then finally, one unique thing that Cedarville offers is something called Summer Scholars. So in the month of June, we offer a 2-week class that students can earn 3 credit hours, and they live in a dorm. So for that experience, their tuition is covered by College Credit Plus, but their room and board fees are obviously the responsibility of the family.
I will have to say that I have witnessed some of those summer scholar classes and all the fun things that I do on campus over that 2-week, and it is a wonderful experience. So if your student would be interested in summer scholars, definitely check out our website. It's cedarville.edu/dual enrollment, and there you can find all the information. But I totally would recommend. I can tell those students have so much fun. So just to reiterate, the big question, how do I participate in CCP?
Absolutely. So we talked about eligibility. First of all, you need to look and see if your student is eligible. The second thing you need to do is apply to a college. Students must have a letter of acceptance from a college before they apply for funding. Once your student's been accepted to a college, then as a homeschool parent, you will go to an OHID account, which you can find at the College Credit Plus website, and open an OHID account and apply for funding. In order to apply for funding, you're going to need some documents. And the documents that you will be required to provide as a homeschooled student, or a homeschooled parent rather, are your letter of acceptance to a college, your student's letter of acceptance, and then also if your student is a returning student, they will need to submit a letter of good standing from their college and a copy of their unofficial college transcript. And then every homeschooled parent has to provide their letter of excusal from compulsory attendance from the superintendent of schools of your local school district.
Honestly, Shelley, that was a lot of information, and that was very impressive. I mean, she did that from memory.
I've said it a few times, Sarah.
Well done. So we have a couple questions in the chat back to summer scholars and CCP funding.
Perfect.
So, how long must you have been an Ohio resident before you can apply as an in-state student?
That is a really good question, and I wish Melanie were on the call to answer that. So I think we will have to defer that answer. If you would like to email dual enrollment at cedarville.edu, then we can get an answer for that question to you.
Okay, very good. The next one is about summer scholars. For summer scholars, does the CCP credit come from the year before or after the classes?
Okay, that's a good question. So when your student has received funding, the funding process actually begins February 1st and ends on April 1st. So parents must apply for funding between those dates. After you've applied for funding, then typically about 5 weeks later, you will get your funding award. Once that funding award is distributed, it is for the 22-23 school year, which begins with summer. So think of your CCP cycle or funding cycle as summer, fall, spring.
Okay, very good. One more question. Are any CCP courses at CU in the fall online, live, and not asynchronous?
We do not offer any live online classes in fall and spring. Last summer in July, we offered a 2-week synchronous class via Zoom. I'm not certain yet if we're going to be offering that this July. So again, check that Summer Scholars website or cedarville.edu/dual enrollment. We just changed our name from college now to dual enrollment. Check that out, and probably in another few weeks we'll have that information available online.
All right, we have another question from Susan. She said, the grades in these classes become part of high school transcripts. For CU scholarship transcripts, are they still considered?
For CU scholarship transcripts?
So when you're applying for Cedarville and trying to qualify for academic scholarships,
okay,
will those college courses on the high school transcript affect the GPA, which affects the academic scholarship?
Again, you guys are asking great questions tonight. So, first of all, yes, this is a dual credit class. If you use CCP funding, it's a dual credit class, which means the grade goes on the high school transcript and the college transcript. Now, our admissions counselors would say that every student has an equal opportunity to come to Cedarville, but obviously if your student has done really well in their College Credit Plus classes at Cedarville, we're going to take that into consideration as we look at them holistically. That would be true if they also went to another college. So think of it like taking AP classes, anything that you can do to make your student stand out and show that they are ready for college will be helpful to them in terms of admissions and scholarships.
Okay. So back to your overview of how do I participate in CCP. In step 1, you mentioned there may be possible changes to CCP eligibility. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, and I touched on this earlier. Historically, the way the law is written, College Credit Plus students must provide test scores. It's written in Ohio legislation that way. In 2020 and 2021, due to the pandemic, those test scores were waived because obviously a lot of students weren't able to take tests. The legislatures have decided not to waive that this year. Instead, what they have done is created a new rule. So House Bill 110 was passed last summer, and what it says is that the Ohio Chancellor of Education can determine new eligibility rules. And so rules have been written, proposed, there have been public hearings, and there's going to be a vote on those rules in mid-February. We don't know yet what those rules exactly are going to say because we've all watched enough legislation pass to know that it doesn't always look exactly the way it started out by the time it gets voted on and completed. What you might see is that students can still participate in CCP with a 3.0 high school GPA. Now that can be a little tricky for those 7th grade students who maybe haven't taken a high school course yet. So what is proposed for those students is that they might be required to provide test scores if they don't have a high school GPA. But again, it's going through the process. We should know by mid-February what those rules are, and any of the academic advisors at Cedarville would be happy to talk you through that if you have a younger student.
So age is a great question. So this is a university. Beyond Cedarville, CCP applies to universities, and so the content might be more mature. So how do mature content rules affect CCP courses?
Great question. This is a new topic for us. So as part of House Bill 110, the Ohio House also passed a new law that says colleges must post on their websites a mature content warning. And so every college, when you go to their CCP website, you're going to see that. We all have to post the same warning, and I think it's up here on the screen, so I'll let you read that. The other part of this is that in addition to warning students, students have to do a couple of other steps. So as part of the admission process, both the student and the parent now have to sign a mature content warning slip. And the student, when they register for classes as part of their registration materials, the student will have to sign a mature questionnaire. Now, there are 2 questions on that. They're prescribed by the state. They pretty much just ask the student if they're mature enough for college classes. But it is an important question because they're often, if you're in 7th or 8th grade, in class with students who are 6, 7, 8 years older than you.
So how does that translate here to Cedarville? So if these families, their students were to enroll in classes at Cedarville.
So at Cedarville, we state very clearly on our website that while we agree that and post this warning as we're supposed to, every class at Cedarville is taught from a biblical worldview and in accordance with our doctrinal statement. So you can go to our website, you can read our doctrinal statement, you can see what we stand for. But I will tell you that our mission statement is that we stand for the Word of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. All of our professors are Christian professors who affirm our doctrinal statement annually. And even though there may be mature topics in a class, so my example is typically that you can't study psychology without studying people, and people are often a mess. We do that from a biblical perspective.
Yes, very good. So, can you talk a little bit about the application process?
Yes, the application to Cedarville process. So at Cedarville, students can go to cedarville.edu/apply and begin their application. It should be the student applying for college. So while as homeschool parents, and I know I've been there, we're very tempted to do this process for them, I really encourage you to sit beside your student and let them walk through it. Because if they're going to take a college class, they have to be able to fill out a form. We have to trust them with that. So the student should complete the application, and the requirements to be accepted at Cedarville are that the student submit a statement of their personal relationship with Jesus Christ, because that is the most important decision they're ever going to make, far more important than college classes.
Agreed.
That is part of their application. The other piece is that they have to have a Christian leader recommendation form completed. So when they sit down to complete their application, they should have the name and email address of someone from their church, a youth pastor, maybe a co-op leader, someone who can speak to their walk with the Lord. And then they're also required to have a 3.0 high school GPA. Test scores are a question that everyone asks, so I'll just preempt that before you put it in the comment section. Cedarville is test optional through 2023. So that means your student is not required to submit test scores. But if you choose to submit test scores, we will look at them. And if your student is on the younger end and maybe doesn't have a lot of high school coursework, we will sometimes recommend that they submit those just so that we can see that they're college ready.
Good question. We just had in the chat. What tests do students need to take? The ACT, SAT, or standardized test? None of the above.
Well, absolutely. For Cedarville, none of the above. If the state of Ohio does decide to have a test requirement or a test option, there are several options that students can take, but the most popular are the SAT, the ACT, the AccuPlacer, and there are different varieties of AccuPlacers. So all of those will count for CCP requirements. Cedarville also accepts the CLT, which is not accepted by College Credit Plus.
So we have a question from Rosina Stefan on YouTube. She says, does Shelley know if there are any proposed changes to the option to have a certified teacher do an evaluation in place of end-of-year testing in relation to homeschool?
That is another question that I wish Melanie were here for. So hopefully someone from CHEO will answer that in the chat for you. But I have not heard that. I have not heard that.
Okay, back to Facebook. We have another question for you from Melissa. When you apply for the college, do you notate in a specific spot that your student is a College Credit Plus student?
When your student is indicated as an Ohio student, we will make the assumption that they are probably at some point going to apply for College Credit Plus. So we will go ahead and send to the parent and the student that mature content permission slip. What happens and what makes them eligible to spend College Credit Plus funding at Cedarville is once your student has been awarded funds, then you send a copy of that funding award letter to Cedarville and let us know which classes you plan to take for College Credit Plus and if there are any classes that you plan to take as a family pay option.
Thank you. Next question from Facebook is Leah. As a returning dual enrollment student, when should we expect to receive the letter of good standing to apply for the 2022-23 academic year from the 21-22 academic year?
Great. Your student should be watching their email. I encourage my students to check it every day, so hopefully your student is doing that. Probably in mid-February, we anticipate that the students will get an email giving them a link and telling them how to access that letter.
Very good. All right, I'm going to go back to YouTube. We have another question. If you need a 3.0 high school GPA, how does that transfer from junior high kids?
Right. So a lot of junior high students have taken some high school level courses. Maybe your student has taken Spanish 1 or Algebra 1 or a U.S. history course that you're counting for high school. So what I recommend that families do is when they create their 8th grade report, they notate that which classes are high school level classes. so that we know that. And then you will also want to create a high school transcript and go ahead and put those 7th and 8th grade high school courses on your student's high school transcript. I hope that made sense.
That did.
Good.
Good job. And thank you for all these questions. This is awesome. We did have many questions prepared in case you didn't ask any, but you've done a great job. So thank you for asking. We're so proud.
We are.
So after a homeschool student is accepted to a college, the parents should apply for funding. Is the deadline always April 1st? Because I would think it was later than that last year.
So in the past 2 years, due to COVID, the deadline was moved to May 1st. But yes, the deadline, as it's written in legislation, is April 1st. And the deadline is April 1st this year as well. Not only is the deadline April 1st, it's April 1st by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, and if you apply after that, if you hit that submit button late, then your student is not eligible for funding in that year. So apply early because, the internet is not always your friend when you're pushed up against a deadline.
Yes, agree, because we were supposed to have Melanie from CHEO with us tonight, but because of internet inconsistency, we don't have her. So good reminder.
Yes.
So just to clarify, the application for CCP is open from February 1st to April 1st.
That is correct. That is correct. If you do not apply by April 1st, you have to wait until next year for another opportunity to apply for funding. That doesn't mean your student can't take a dual enrolled course. It simply means that you'll apply and you'll self-pay for those courses. But again, Cedarville and most universities discount their tuition significantly for dual enrolled students. So we offer about an 80% discount off of our regular tuition to that $185 per credit hour rate.
Wow. But if you're participating in this live stream tonight, you are modeling to your students how important it is to plan ahead. Okay, next question. Is there a list of documents that parents need to have ready when they apply for CCP funding?
Yes, and I think we touched on this earlier, but I will go back over those. So you, as a homeschooled student or parent, you must provide your letter of excusal from compulsory attendance that is provided by your superintendent. If you are new to homeschooling and you don't have that letter yet, then I encourage you to reach out very soon to your superintendent and find out if they will provide an early letter of excusal for the next academic year. In addition to that letter of excusal, new students must have their letter of acceptance to a college, and returning students must have a letter of acceptance to the college, a letter of good standing from the college, and an unofficial copy of the student's transcript. Typically, the student can get that from their student portal at the school that they've been attending. Sarah, I also want to note that College Credit Plus is all about choice. So students can apply to more than one school. They can attend more than one school in the same year. They can attend more than one school in the same semester. I don't typically recommend it because that's a lot to manage, but it is an option for students. So for instance, Cedarville, perhaps your student is enrolled in Cedarville online classes, but your student wants to take a math class and they really need an in-person math class, like someone standing over them pointing at those problems. Not that that happens in college. It just happened at my kitchen table a lot. Your student could actually be accepted to 2 different colleges. You can upload both of those letters to the OHID account. You can also add additional colleges later. So say your student starts with one college and then they maybe find that they can't enroll in the course that they want, the classes are full, or the timing doesn't work for them, then they can always apply to Cedarville later in the year, get that acceptance letter, upload it to your OHID account, and use your College Credit Plus funding in that way.
I appreciate how you're trying to be unbiased, but we do both work for Cedarville University, so we would highly encourage you and your student to take courses here. But College Credit Plus does involve choice, so your student can choose to go elsewhere. But I appreciate that.
Right. Well, and we do find that there are students who perhaps live in Cleveland and want an anatomy and physiology class, which you can't take online at Cedarville. So maybe they take A&P locally, but they want to take all of their humanities courses and history courses from that Christian worldview. So they take their general education credits with us online.
Wonderful. So there's a question on YouTube about how much funding you receive. So can you clarify, if you apply in February, will you be more likely to receive more funding than in late March?
That is a very common question. And the answer is no. Everybody who applies by April 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, their student has the same chance for funding as any other student. The way funding is distributed is that after that April 1st deadline, the state of Ohio will look at all of the CCP funding applications for eligibility. Any students that are ineligible are removed from the list. Then the students who are eligible are divided into year groups, senior, junior, sophomore, and so on. And funding is distributed by year group. So seniors are the first ones to get funding, then juniors, all the way down to 7th grade. If there's any funding left, then the state goes back up to the seniors, and they just keep kind of going through that evolution until all of the funding is dispersed. I should also note, Sarah, that funding is distributed in units of 4. That's because it would require 4 credits to take a science or a foreign language course. And so students can request exactly the number of students or credits that they want. But if they say they want 30 credits, they're going to get 30 credits, some number up to 30 credits in increments of 4.
Okay. When will families find out how much funding their student has received?
Yep. So typically, as I said earlier, the state has 5 weeks from April 1st to provide those funding award letters. So mid-May, typically. The parent will get an email asking them to check their OHID account, and that's where you access your funding letter. Now, that leads to a question about summer enrollment, because often a student will have to register for a summer class before they've received their funding award letter. At Cedarville, we encourage students to go ahead and register for that summer class. If they don't get as much funding as they want, they will have an opportunity to drop the class.
Give me just a moment. We're having some technical issues in the chat, so I'm just trying to make sure that everyone has access to the link. If for any reason the Facebook live stream is pausing or buffering continuously, we also have the live stream available on YouTube, so you feel free to head over there. The live stream might be stronger. Thank you for your answer, Shelley. I'm going to go back to the chat.
While Sarah's looking for the next question, I also wanted to say that historically, every student who successfully applies for funding, meaning that they're eligible, they meet the deadline, every student has gotten at least 4 credit hours historically. So what that often means for our younger students who tend to typically only get 4 hours is that rather than starting classes in the fall, they wait until the spring. That gives them just a little bit more time to mature, get some skills under their belt, figure out what the rest of their classes for the year look like. And I just want everyone to know that's an option as well.
So great question about maturity. When we are talking about college courses and your student and age, they can start as young as 7th grade. While you're thinking about eligibility and mature content, how can you really know when your student is ready for a college course?
Oh, that's a really good question. And as I mentioned earlier, I have 5 sons. They all started college courses at different ages. Typically, in my family, we didn't necessarily choose college courses because they were just because they were academically advanced. But I have boys. It took them a while to figure out that you really do have to check your email every day. Some of those soft skills, those maturity skills, being able to advocate for themselves, being able to speak with a professor on their own, those things are super important. So if your student isn't there yet, I would encourage, you could go ahead and apply for funding, but maybe start in the spring and give them some opportunities to learn those soft skills.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to the chat because we have a couple more questions. So I encourage you now, if there's any final questions that you would love for us to try to answer, please add them to the chat because we're going to start to wind down. But, okay, from Jessica on Facebook, is the letter of excusal the same as the letter received after sending an NOI form? And is the letter from the previous year acceptable?
I'm not sure what an NOI form is, but I believe yes. If you're asking the question, I think that you are. You can go to CHEO's website and see the form that has to be submitted. You basically let your superintendent know what curriculum you plan to use for your student in the next year. And yes, typically the state has allowed that you provide the one for your current year that the student is enrolled in. So for the 2022-23 application, I would provide the letter for the 2021-22 school year.
Awesome. Next question is from Facebook from Debbie. You already touched on this, but reiterate it one more time. Is there a discounted rate for family pay tuition?
There is. It's an 80% discount. It's $185 per credit hour, plus fees and books. Although I will say that for many of our online courses, the books are ebooks, and so that's very affordable.
Very much so. So this is a broader question. So I know we have a Cedarville answer, but in general, how do you find dual enrollment courses?
Within the state of Ohio, I would say just go to the website for each college that you're looking at, type in the words College Credit Plus in their search bar and see what comes up. Also check and try dual enrollment. That might be another search term. Again, in the state of Ohio, every public college and community college is required to participate in CCP. Private colleges have the option, and not all of them do participate.
Okay, so back to YouTube, we have another question from Michael. How long does it usually take to receive a letter of acceptance from a college? And how early do you recommend applying to a college so that you meet the CCP deadline?
I love these questions. These parents, they are on it. I recommend applying now because it can take a little bit to get a letter of acceptance from a college. Cedarville typically says that we will give you an admission decision within 72 hours of having completed your application. But particularly when we're talking about some of these younger students, or if you're waiting on a transcript from a high school your student attended previously, or you're waiting on your recommender, we have to wait for all of those things to be submitted before we can give your application an admissions review. So the earlier the better. And I know that those of you who haven't started your student's transcript yet panic a little bit when I say that. If you go to Cedarville's website, there's an example of a transcript that you can use. You can also find sample transcripts at hslda.org, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
Thank you.
And I believe CHEO is hosting a transcript workshop, but it may not be soon enough for you. Maybe Melanie can put that in the chat too, if she's still with us in the chat.
Yes, we hope so. We really miss Melody. So we have two questions from Stephanie on Facebook. Are there admissions fees we should pay before the other funding kicks in?
There's no application fee, and if your student knows that their classes are CCP eligible, then you can check with the cashier's office at your university, but typically at Cedarville, we would say just wait. Students have 15 days at the beginning of the semester to decide to withdraw from a class with no fault. So if they withdraw within those first 15 days, their CCP funding isn't spent, and there's no record of the class on their transcript. So for that reason, we don't even bill College Credit Plus until after day 15. So you might see that balance on your bill for a little bit, depending upon what the college's accounting practices are.
What about the application to a university? Is there a fee associated with that?
I can't speak for other universities, but Cedarville has no application fee.
Okay. And then the CCP application also does not have a fee?
No fee.
Okay. Can you give, on average, how expensive books usually are?
Wow, that varies widely. As I mentioned earlier, some classes are going to have free ebooks. Other classes could have, your typical college textbooks that cost $100 or $200 or more dollars. Cedarville does a great job. Our bookstore, in addition to listing the books that you can purchase from our bookstore, we list all sorts of other vendors that you can buy from so that you can check prices and compare prices. You can also typically, you can view the books from the previous semester so you have an idea of what books cost before you enroll in the class, if that's a concern for you.
Okay. We have another question from Jenny on Facebook. She's asking, is Spanish an option for CCP at Cedarville?
It is on campus, but we do not offer foreign languages online.
Okay, very good. Another question I have is, what if my student fails their CCP class?
Yes. Well, first of all, we hope your student doesn't fail a CCP class. Students have many, many opportunities to withdraw from a class so that they don't have an F on their transcript. And at Cedarville, we send lots of reminders from the academic advisor to make sure your student is aware of that. But if your student has just checked out and they're not checking their emails, then occasionally we do see a student who gets a poor grade. If a student earns a cumulative college GPA below 2.0, if they fail a course, or if they withdraw from 2 or more CCP courses in one semester, they're placed on Ccp Academic Probation. While a student is on probation, they can only take one CCP class in the next semester, and they get 2 semesters to redeem themselves.
Okay.
If a student continues to fail and doesn't bring their GPA above a 2.0, then the student is placed on Ccp Dismissal, which is why when you apply for funding, you have to include your transcript.
And so that just goes to the parent evaluating the maturity and the readiness of your student.
That's right. That's right. And another piece that goes to that maturity and readiness is something called Ferpa. So if you're not familiar with Ferpa, you may be familiar with HIPAA. So if you have older students, when you go to the doctor's office and you sign that HIPAA form, at a certain age, your student will have to sign that form so that the nurses and doctors can talk to parents. In higher education, once a student enrolls in a college course, a federal law called the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act goes into effect. And what that means is that we can answer general questions for parents about classes and policies, but we cannot share with parents anything about the student's academic progress or anything about their finances. So even though these students are young and you're the parent and you're the one in control of their education, you do give up some of that right to information when you enroll your student in a college course.
Excellent. So that's all the questions that I have in the chat. We do have a couple thank yous, and one mom wanted to clarify that NOI is the Notice of Intent form for homeschool families.
That's what I thought. The words were not coming to my mind, so thank you for clarifying that.
So do you have any final words about dual enrollment or College Credit Plus?
I think my final words are choice. CCP is all about choice, but I encourage families, homeschool families in particular, to remember what your mission is with your students. If you haven't written a mission statement for your homeschool, I encourage you to do that. The college that you choose should align with what you want for your student. And as I said earlier, their decision about who Jesus is and what role they're going to let Jesus play in their lives is the most important decision they will ever make. So from my point of view, if your student can take classes from a biblical worldview, from Christian professors who love the Lord, then that's the best choice that you can make for your student.
Great job, Shelley. It really comes through that you are a veteran homeschool mom with a wealth of knowledge, but also professionally, you are a dual enrollment advisor. So I'm just the host here. Hopefully I was active enough in the chat. Hopefully I served you very well. But thank you, Shelley. You are a gem. You have so much knowledge, so much wisdom. I just wanted to give a couple emails and websites to write down if you have further questions. First off, if you go to cedarville.edu/dual enrollment, hopefully there should be a wealth of information as well as the application and some deadlines and more information about summer scholars. So please visit our website. That is cedarville.edu/dual enrollment. If you have specific questions, we would love to help you, specifically Shelley, our expert over here. Her email would be dualenrollment@cedarville.edu. So if I missed any of your questions in the chat, or if you have more specific information, she is an advisor, so she will definitely reach out to you and help you with those answers. So that is dualenrollment@cedarville.edu. Lastly, our partner for this evening, which we were not able to have join us, Melanie Elsey from CHEO, Christian Home Educators of Ohio. Did I get it right?
You did.
Success. Okay, so their email would be CHEO@CHEOhome.org. So that is also a wonderful resource if you have other questions for them specifically related to legislation and funding with CCP and homeschool education. Please reach out to them. If that doesn't work out, please reach out to dual enrollment at cedarville.edu. We'll definitely direct you to CHEO to make sure your questions are answered. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been wonderful to learn about College Credit Plus and all of the wonderful opportunities. I am also a homeschool alumni. I was homeschooled my entire education. So I am so pleased and excited about the future of home education with colleges and universities, and CCP is a wonderful program. So thank you for joining us. We hope this was informative and educational and hopefully a little fun.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, for your time tonight.
You're welcome. See ya.
Bye.